What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Brian Reacts to both amateur and pro form alike. This is a brand new series on the channel. If you like what I'm producing, please leave a comment, leave a like. If you haven't subscribed already, please do that as well. Today, I'm going to be focusing on a player that I actually only really heard about recently when he made a splash at the 2024 distance competition held at US Nationals, where he prevailed over a whole ton of people who are known for tremendous power, including some of the real titans of distance, finishing, I believe, in the top 5, throwing well over 600 feet. That player, of course, is a guy named Silas Schultz. So in front of me right now is Silas Schultz's form. So let's watch that a couple times, and then we're gonna go through it frame by frame. Just like that, it's just a blur. Rewind that again. Instantaneous, a blur of energy, bracing. Pretty much invisible, honestly, to the naked eye, all of the incredible things that are going on to produce the force that this guy can put into a golf disc. And again, he's capable of throwing well over 600 feet with regularity. He has a video that he put out called something to the effect of how far does Silas Schultz actually throw? And he hits the 600-foot barrier with relative consistency over and over and over again in the field. Really amazing stuff. So let's see how he does it. I'm going to jump back to the beginning of this video, and we're going to start out at what looks like 250 frames per second. And then right away, it's going to slow down into bullet time. 1,000 frames per second. So the first thing I want you to pay attention to is Silas moves the disc in front of his body. I've talked a lot about the intention of counterweighting where you intend your body to go. And he's already sort of moving the disc and his arm in front of his body. This is a critical piece because he's about to bring his left leg through in line with the target. Everything is going to be moving this way. Hip, shoulders, back leg, all moving down the line together. And in order to help offset where his back foot is going to be able to move, in order to keep all of his lateral energy preserved and to keep all of his momentum essentially in front of the instep of his back foot, Silas is aiding in that by moving the disc in front of his body. A lot of people don't do this. For example, you'll see Drew Gibson holds the disc back by his left hip, and I believe Gannon kind of does that too. But Silas holds the disc out in front of his body. If you're struggling to land balanced on your back foot, give this a try. Just play around with holding the disc out in front of your body and see if that helps. You can see that Silas is also looking downrange. He's focused intently on his target, and he's aiming for a position in space right here. I'd imagine he's envisioning the bullet right about mid-screen. All of his momentum is going to be heading in that direction. And we'll just watch and see what goes from there. So you notice he's perfectly balanced through the footwork. Moving effortlessly to the left foot, landing on the tippy toe of the left foot. So why is he landing on his foot this high? It does two things. One, it gives him a ton of mobility. It allows him to stride effortlessly down to plant firmly on the tee pad without his foot getting turned backwards or anything like that. And I've talked before about how the cue of the heels are lava is something to really follow. Silas practices that discipline perfectly, essentially. I want you to pay attention to where his head height moves, balanced on that foot, already loading the upper body. You can see he's beginning to turn his back, exposing his back to the target. And in a second here, the line of his back right here, if I were to draw a line straight down through his shoulders, and this are exactly parallel. I've talked about how a really good cue to follow for how much you need to load your back, how much you need to turn into the backswing, and particularly how much you need to essentially load and coil the back shoulder, make it align with the back of your plant foot. If these two things are in perfect alignment, your body will usually be in the strongest position to brace and transfer energy forward. Let me go a little bit further along here. We'll see all the way down into the plant right there. And I'm going to stop it there to highlight what I was talking about. Look at the difference in height between the highest point, basically the apex of Silas's footwork, when he was right up on top of his toe, all the way down into ramming his foot into the ground to brace. This is a gravitational drop of roughly a foot, maybe even a little bit more. And I believe Silas weighs around 160 pounds. If you can imagine how much kinetic energy is contained in a 160-pound weight that drops a foot, if you can transfer all of that energy by pressing it into the ground, using the elasticity of the leg to absorb it and push it back up into the arm and the disc, you get a huge amount of extra kinetic energy added to the mechanism that you don't have to get from your body. It's all coming from both gravity and from the ground in a reciprocal way. Silas is a masterful steward of that energy straight into the disc, which he's able to accelerate under perfect leverage here. And you'll see his whole body is braced against the energy of the disc. An incredibly linear, flat swing. His back leg counterweighting perfectly, hips way ahead of the shoulders, head perfectly stationary all the way out to the ejection point right there. And you see his back leg is counterweighting in a way that some of the other players you don't necessarily see. He kind of keeps it more behind his body. Other people kind of swivel out, but I think that might be a consequence of the fact that he's throwing this steep hyzer angle. Let's watch that one more time. It is just such a thing of beauty to behold. It needs to be set to music. Dropping down, 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 driving energy into the toe to heel, crunching down on the heel, disc moving, perfect leverage, popping out away. You can see the disc warping and contorting under the energy, the off-axis torque that acceleration is delivering into the disc. I imagine that because he can consistently throw 600 feet, Silas Schultz is capable of throwing mid to high 70 mile per hour range. He doesn't quite have that super pinnacle velocity that you see in the guys who can throw over 80, but he's only 6 feet tall. He doesn't have all of the leverage advantages. He is a personification of efficiency and energy transfer and beautiful biomechanics in the backhand. You could do, honestly, it would be impossible to do better, in my opinion. This is about as perfect form as you'll ever see. So I just want to take one more moment to talk about the intention of trajectory. I mentioned the idea of the formation of the bullet. And based on his line of sight and the way that his body was moving, I envisioned that Silas was targeting a bullet right about here. Of course, he's doing an impact point about here, but his target is right here. That's where the disc is going to be aimed. And if you watch, everything is setting up to throw the disc exactly there. He knows exactly where he's going to brace, where the energy is going to come up his leg, compressing his body against that, disc whips out, bang on target right there. Accurate disc golf. This is the consequence of bracing and intention catalyzed by balance and adding momentum in exactly the right way. Silas is impeccable, immaculate form. You could do no better. So that's my full review of Silas's form. Thanks so much for watching. Again, I love your comments. I would love to hear what you have to say. I read and reply to everything. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you for the next one. Take care.